Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of The Future of Desire. Today, I have Felipe with me. Felipe is one of the rare voices in luxury who has shaped the very foundations of how we think about brands. From his early career leading FMCG giants like Nivea and Wella to founding Couture Brands and later HAUTeLUXE, he has spent decades helping luxury houses from fashion to jewelry to hospitality reconstruct their DNA and build meaningful futures. Felipe isn't just a consultant, he's a theorist and an educator. His co authored work on brand architecture laid down the frameworks still used by strategists today, and his book, Haute Luxury Branding, has become a reference point for both academics and practitioners. Across Europe, India, and China, he teaches at leading business schools, bridging strategy and culture while staying closely connected to industry practice. At the same time, Felipe has always looked ahead from pioneering masstige hair care and designer fragrances to now focusing on ethical colored diamonds and sustainable brand storytelling. His philosophy is clear. Luxury must be both meaningful and desirable, rooted in heritage, yet ready for the future. What makes Felipe's perspective so distinctive is his ability to decode luxury as both science and poetry, strategy and story, rigor and mystique. Today, he joins us to explore how desire is not only felt at the surface, but also engineered deep within systems of brand, culture, and society, and how the future of luxury will demand a balance of transparency, responsibility, and creativity without losing its aura of magic. Welcome, Felipe.
Thank you for that incredible introduction. I think it's definitely more than I have ever deserved. But thank you very much for having me here. In fact, I'm more impressed, as I told you earlier, about your own career growth so far that I should be interviewing you. But thank you for having me here.
So, thank you so much for your kind words. Let's get started into the podcast. My first question would be, you've worked across FMCG, prestige, and ultra luxury. How has your understanding of desire changed as you moved from mass beauty to the highest levels of hot jewelry and fashion?
Yeah, that's such a hard one. Desire is the hardest thing to speak about, actually. But I think you make me go back to, in those days in the mass market, we were focusing on activating emotions through advertising. It was the way of doing it. Um, so to get advertising that the mass market would aspire to or relate to. But for products, it was very difficult to know what people would desire in the future. So in my first jobs, when I was creating, let's say, perfume deo colognes or body sprays, uh, those days people all rush out to buy the same trending perfume. So what I would do is contact, because I'm in contact with the same aroma chemical companies as Christian Dior and Yves Saint Laurent and Estée Lauder. So I could find out from those companies what Dior would be launching in 6 months' time. It's kind of normal that they tell us. And what Yves Saint Laurent has been launching, because once they've won a perfume brief, they kind of tell us, and then they show us what's coming out. And that's what, we always believed that people would follow. So it was easy to then do some research on those fragrances before they come out to see what our local market would like and then kind of copy it. It would never be the same company that made it that would copy it, of course, but the competitor would copy the kind of scent in the cheapest possible way. And then we would just go out there, the same kind of colors, uh, but I'm doing a deodorant, perfume body spray. I'm not doing the real perfume. So it's not a dupe. But that actually worked pretty well until I got to the point that when I was working in more luxury, then you can't copy anybody. Then you have to lead, and
Yeah.
that gets harder. And then how do you know what the future is going to be? So the kind of tricks I would do is overexpose myself to the perfume that everybody loves as much as possible, smell it until I hate it, and then expose myself to now what is going to be new on my nose because I don't want to smell that thing anymore. So
Yeah.
you're doing an accelerated time trial on yourself in a sense, and I found that was very, very useful, but to also look at other codes. What kind of music are they going for? Heavier music will maybe be heavier fragrance. And I was making funny links like that
Mm-hmm.
to try to see the future. It's very hard to know what people will design in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
fashion designers often just do what they desire,
Right.
and take it or leave it. And then you just hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
So so I think that's a big difference between those industries. In mass market, you can follow luxury. In luxury, you can't. You have to lead and take a risk and take a chance and go out there. You don't research everything. You just do it, and that's your research. And if it fails, we'll pull it out.
Yeah.
But you really take the chances, and I love that about luxury.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the most interesting aspects within this industry, that for luxury brands, you definitely have to lead. You can't follow, you have to be the trendsetters. And I think they are the ones setting the tone for desire and for people, to try on new things, and define the future eventually. So, yeah, I mean,
Having said that,
luxury. Yeah.
sorry, just to add a little thing in the mass market, one of the things uh, that we that we could do in the mass market, we were doing it's on hair care,
Mm.
which is a very problem solution. You've got the rational part, get that formula right for the problem solution, because
Right.
people are never happy with their hair. But the emotion would kick in with the fragrance. So that's why I'm into fragrance, because you get a lovely fragrance. People get hooked on the fragrance. They
Yeah.
keep buying the same shampoo because they love the fragrance. And that's
Yeah.
where a lot of mass market don't take fragrance seriously enough. But that was the emotional thing subconsciously that made these products succeed longer than the others. Now, there we're not copying anybody. You're just coming up with a fragrance that you think, wow, this is going to be a winner. But you don't just put any fragrance to to mask the smell of the essential, of the ingredients of the formula.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of something that I've read on LinkedIn that, fragrance is something that is very much related to an emotion. And
Mm.
once you get the emotion right, I feel you've landed the product.
Yeah,
You've landed that fragrance. So I think you rightly said that, even if people are buying a shampoo, um, if they're buying it for the formulation, I mean, of course, it's a hit, but they also do buy it for the emotional value of the fragrance, which comes with the product. So, yeah, I
absolutely.
mean,
I would say you have to deliver the functional experience, but the emotional
definitely.
benefit,
Yeah.
that's how you try to keep that desire going.
Yeah, 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 true. So, luxury is built on heritage, as we know, and it is also constantly reinvented. So, do you think heritage is still the strongest driver of desire, or has reinvention overtaken it?
Okay, look, I'm not an expert in desire or heritage, and heritage means different things to many people. But I'd say that for the followers and aspirationals, heritage is massively important, or the perception of heritage.
Mhm.
They'll even come to Paris looking for old heritage brands that others haven't seen. And they end up buying from fake heritage brands. Like there's one called Forêt Lepage. I'll send you the spelling.
Mhm.
1716, an old gun company that are now selling handbags that look very much like Goyard or Vuitton. And people
Mhm.
are buying it because they're right next door to Chanel and say, oh, wow, we discovered this old brand that's been there since 1716. It's older than Vuitton. And it's an absolute nonsense. The guys just, went and trademarked that name, and then they pretend that they have the heritage when it's got nothing to do with the original gun company at all.
Oh, really?
And that company never made any bags.
Hmm.
Or there's a brand called Officine Universelle Bully that LVMH bought recently, 1803, based on this guy, Claude Bouly, who invented a kind of vinegar-based fragrance to fight body odors. That was after the Black Death. And Ram Dunn, another guy who created it, I mean, it was just reading a book on Balzac book, and he came across this Bouly. He said, "Oh, that's an idea," and he did some research on him, and he decided to create this brand around this character in the book. And people are thinking, "Oh, we found this really old apothecary brand that's been around since 1803. And a lot of influencers are the ones driving this because they don't do their research. They go and they stumble across these brands, they see the dates and say, oh my God, 1716, 1803.
Mhm.
It's the real deal. And it's not. It's been around for 4 years. It's been around for 3 years, you know.
Mhm.
So it's a bit of a con, and but it makes people, especially from new countries like America, if you want to call it that, who are looking for history, are buying the heritage brands, f feeling they're buying a piece of history, old know-how that was transmitted over time, and it's not true at all. That, you know, they need to do their research. For the innovators, they don't go for that. They desire change. Desire is coming from change. You
Mhm.
know, it's like in relationships, there's love at first sight. How do you explain that? You know, it's like, oh, wow. So now, yeah, I want her, I want him. You know, it's or the handbag. Oh, wow, the new car, the new watch. Oh, I want it because I want it. It's the surprise creates the desire. And that's something that the French understood under the King Louis XIV with why he started fashion. He said, "Stop coming to my court dressed in the same way every day. You are boring. Change, surprise me, delight me." And those are the things that I think desire very much comes from this new. You need that surprise. It's a massive thing because desire is a powerful force. It's deeper than a want. It's irrational. It's a passionate emotion. You
Yeah.
know, we feel the force. It's a feeling.
Mm.
And then it's a matter of how we control that feeling.
Yeah.
Because the problem is once you obtain that object or person, then you feel empty because the desire is no longer there, or we feel anxious about losing what
Yeah.
we've just obtained.
Mm.
So it's a very, very tricky area. But I think that the followers are one thing, and the innovators want the new thing. They're not looking for the
Mm.
old thing or the fake old thing. They say, who's the new talent of today? They want to find that.
Mm. Mm. I mean, you've enlightened me with layers of history that I was not aware of. But yeah, I mean, I think that is why France and Italy and more or less Europe is considered, the home countries of fashion and luxury. So, as you rightly mentioned, uh, it's interesting to know such stories. And yeah, I mean, desire is definitely a complex feeling, a very passionate and a very deep one. So it's complex to, just uncover different layers of how desire is created and formed. Yeah, so moving on to the next question. Many luxury brands, Philip, have repositioned our household names today. In your experience, what truly keeps a brand timelessly desirable? I mean, you see brands like Hermes or, Vuitton. So how do you think they have become timelessly desirable?
No, I've been trying that trick on my wife. How can I be timeless? Terrible. And I'm just getting older and uglier by the day and fatter.
Yeah.
No, actually, the answers can be different whether you're speaking about, let's say, art, a Picasso, a Rolls-Royce, a Birkin
Mhm.
bag, Chanel
Yeah,
number 5. They're
yeah.
very, very different. It's timelessly desirable. And I think, because with cars, you can have that increase in value for collections, for collectors. For the Birkin, it could be also, it's a club membership sign. Uh, Chanel number 5, I think, was not too distinctive. I think one of its magics was it's not like some perfumes that you can smell it from a mile away, and then, oh my God, she's wearing the same thing as I am. I'm not going to wear it anymore. Some very distinctive perfumes. Uh, Angel of Terry Mugler was one of those. So I think Chanel number 5 has been. It's a very good sense that you don't necessarily recognize. It's not in your face. You've got to be really close to take it in. But even that brand started suffering over time, and it's had to be reboosted and propped up a few times in its life. So I think that's the hardest industry to make something timelessly desirable because it doesn't increase in value over time.
Mm.
A Birkin bag can, a car can, a vintage car, a watch can. So the hard luxuries, it's much easier to be timelessly desirable. And I think the trick for Chanel number five, which is really interesting, is that they made it iconic. And it's helped that even Andy Warhol and artists were making the bottle iconic, but they made it iconic. And even that wasn't enough. And then they realized, the Wertheimers, the owners of the company, they realized that you that each time the perfume was failing, it's because the fashion house had shut down.
Hmm.
People don't realize that Chanel, the house died three times in its life. It was then brought back again.
Yeah.
And they realized that it needed the fashion house to boost the fragrance.
Hmm.
The fashion house were the roots of it. So without the fashion house, the fragrance was lost in the wilderness. And it started dying out just as the little old ladies who were wearing it were dying out. And so they tried to bring in French actresses like Catherine Deneuve and a few of them to boost it up and make it feel Frenchy and put a face to it, a French face to it. It wasn't enough. They had to bring back the fashion brand successfully. They tried a few times, and then the great Karl Lagerfeld, everyone said, "Don't touch that brand. She was a horrible woman, and it's a failure, and it's over. It's going to ruin your reputation." He said, "No." She reminds me of my mother. I studied that brand inside out. I know it really well. I know I can be successful with it because he's not a designer who's like an artist about it's about me, me, me. He wasn't like that. He knows how to get into the character of another. When he was Fendi, he was Fendi. When he was Chanel, he was Chanel. Like a good actor, they can take on a character in a movie.
Hmm.
And Cole was like that, that chameleon. And so bringing back that fashion brand to so successfully and going straight to the top, haute couture, really boosted that fragrance. And now you'll see, and it remains a bestseller. Now you can see Dior doing exactly the same thing with J'adore Dior,
Yeah.
making it iconic. There's not a place in the world where there isn't an exhibition happening around J'adore Dior right now in
Hmm.
some country. There's something to make it timelessly desirable. So you have to make it iconic. And I think that's the key. It's very hard to make things iconic, but you have to. And then you start to get there. But it's timelessly desirable is the hardest thing. As I started off, try doing that in your relationship. One thing is to love somebody, another thing is to desire them. It's not always the same. You can desire someone you don't love. And the brands have been now focusing more on the desire than the love. In the past, it was the love. Yeah, I love Hermes. To be honest, there's nothing I want from them unless a saddle for a horse. But I'm not dreaming of anything that they make. It's not me. So but I love the brand and for a lot of things that they stand for. So that love and desire are the tricky issues for branding to work on. And right now, luxury has been focusing very much more on desire than the love.
Yeah. I mean, you've made some really interesting points here because I realized that, in order to make a timelessly iconic piece, I think they, like all of the examples that you mentioned, if you mentioned Chanel or Dior or whatever, these brands went back to their heritage, to their roots, which was fashion and couture.
Yeah.
They had to take help, or they had to be visible enough in those aspects first in order to bring in and make their newer product lines more iconic and more visible and more loved or desired within its clientele. So yeah, I really feel that it takes a lot of effort, and you really need to go back to your roots, and to get yourself aligned with, with the fact or with the point from where you started your journey. I mean, it's really
Fundamental.
insightful from you to understand this aspect.
Thank you.
I mean, you've spent decades teaching and advising on brand architecture. Is desire something that can be architected, or is it always elusive, something organic that grows beyond strategy?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Actually, most of us in the industry, I mean, we refer back to Sigmund Freud's nephew, Ed Bernays,
Mm-hmm.
because Ed Bernays was the kind of pioneer of public relations. He was a propagandist. And he understood that, and he thought after the World War II, he said, well, if we can use propaganda for war, we can obviously use it for peace. How do you control the masses and get them to convert them from being good citizens to being good consumers? Get them to consume and consume because that will keep the economy going. And here's also a guy who linked capitalism and consumerism together
Mm-hmm.
uh, because they're not necessarily related. I mean, you can see in China is not a capitalist country, but the consumption is huge. But
Yeah.
he made that link of capitalism, consumerism, and he said, you know, we can stop appealing to people's rational thoughts. It's not how the world works. You have to appeal to their emotions. And so when he was asked to find a way to get women to smoke, and that's the most famous case that he did in 1929 or something. It was a matter of saying, okay, how do we get women to start smoking? And so he came up with the idea of, well, these are torches of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was linking it to, you know, the Statue of Liberty, the women holding up a torch of freedom. They said, this is women for emancipation. It's a symbol of a women's emancipation. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Torches of freedom. They need to light up. And you got women these to light up on very important occasions that all the press would see these women smoking in public. And it made it take off. I mean, it's shocking, but it's an absolute manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it got into all the newspapers. And so, you know, this is Ed Bernays was the first one to take his uncle Freud's psychological theories and manipulate them to use them to manipulate the masses into desiring things that they want but don't necessarily need. And this was what opened up that whole advertising industry as we know today. And the public relations, so-called public relations industry, was all about that, focusing on getting people to desire things that they don't actually need. But so coming back to architected, you know, that's also, so he did that. Absolutely. It was very, there's the two academics, friends of mine actually, who wrote the book Brand Desire.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Ind and Oriel Iglesias. And they tried to create a model on brand desire. And in their model, they say that desire takes five things: sensuality, which we know, okay, all the senses; authenticity, which is very important; sincerity; surprise, just like I've been saying, surprise for me is the most magical; meaningfulness, which is what we're all looking for today; and they add in social identity, you know, as a means of self-definition. So I think that it's an interesting model, but can you really make a model on desire? Can you? Yeah, it's just a guideline for us to use when we're trying to get people to desire what we're making. Uh, it's guidelines. But I think what I like about their model is adding the meaningfulness into it and the authenticity. You know, and I think that we're going very much in that direction. People are starting to look for more meaning out of their purchases or out of their luxury goods or services.
So, I mean, you would say that it's a mix of both, like architecture, building a brand architecture and combining strategy to actually, build that kind of that feeling of desire for people.
You know what? It's little bit like asking me the difference between brand identity and brand image.
Hmm.
I cannot create a brand image.
You can
I
only
can
create the identity, right?
I can do the best I can, but the image will be your perception of me, of
Definitely.
my
Yeah.
brand, relative to the choices that you have. So I'll never be sure of the outcome. I can only try my best. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Mm.
We just try to create desirable objects that challenge people's self-control. If you like,
Yeah.
you want to make it,
Yeah.
just take it that little step further.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing enough to really tempt them and away from what they're happy with today. I mean, that's the problem too. They're happy. They don't need the world doesn't need another shampoo, another perfume, or another car uh, necessarily. But so it's a very tricky game that we play.
Hmm. True. So, I mean, you've worked across various cultures in Europe, in US, in Asia. How does the idea of desire shift across geographies? And do Western and Eastern luxury consumers desire differently?
Yes, because of course uh, our values are different, our dreams, our desires are different. There's a lot of common factors. I mean, when working on international things, you know, you try to find as common as possible, as different as necessary, but you try to find, like Apple did when they invented, their iPods or and then the iPhone. It's a matter of saying we don't want to do something different for every country. It's not cost effective. It's not refined. There must be a common link that
Mm.
everyone can desire the same thing. And it's taking your time to really understand that. Um, but if we're looking at it today, I mean, we're seeing a lot of luxury fatigue
Yeah.
setting in.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think, that's also the fault. I mean, it was very easy when at the, in the at the turn of the century when we saw like Asian countries rising out of poverty and climbing up the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and everyone started to rush out to buy white goods, like washing machines and dishwashers, and then buying big plasma screens, and then trading up all the way towards and buying the luxury brand.
Yeah.
Um, and there was that, and then COVID put the brakes on a lot of that and made us realize how much we're damaging our planet. And there's more things that are important. There are things that are more important. The real luxury is having fresh air to breathe, and things like that,
I
especially in
mean,
China.
COVID has changed the entire perspective of luxury for sure. But yeah, I mean, but that was like a global phenomena, if we talk about. But in terms of geographies, like you rightly mentioned, things actually kind of trickled down from the western part of the world to the eastern part of the world initially, because they were emerging markets or building their economies at that point.
But so here's part of the problem. So these great luxury brands then started to aim downwards and to create more uh, entry products, if you like, and they started to then make a lot of industrial products that were carrying the same luxury name. And so, to the extent, and then over communicate them, and it's got to the point where people have said, "Hang on, I bought this bag thinking it was a luxury." And it's because something I could afford. When I walked in the shop, every bag was selling at 10,000, $30,000 or euros or whatever. And I thought, oh, this one I can afford. It's only 1,000. When in fact, all it is a waterproof canvas bag that's not worth more than a few, not even 100 euros compared to, it'd be like it's the same as a Nike bag. Why have I paid so much money for this brand? And I think that they feel that they were duped, and to the extent they were, and they've become more confident today. And I think where we're seeing a massive difference is, for example, in Japan at the moment. Uh, there's there's a Japanese critic who wrote a book called Low Desire Society. And that's really interesting because they're primarily referring to the Japanese youth who are demonstrating very little ambition. They're not looking for the glamorous jobs, or uh, uh, they keep their expenses low. They're living with their parents. So instead of becoming big spenders and buying house automobiles, they kind of entertain themselves through electronic products and the
Mhm.
like. And they're kind of going closer to the Taoist and Buddhist philosophy against opposite of capitalist and consumerism, where they're saying, how should we manage our desire for material things?
Mm.
And they're soul searching. And the Buddhists teach that to end our suffering is to lose our desire and our ego.
Yeah.
And so they're protecting themselves from these superficial desires, but choosing not to want what they, you know, love, good health, even health of the planet, become greater desires, and timeless ones too. So I think we are seeing a big difference, and that is now spreading to China. They're starting to question in exactly the same way, and I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing it quite a lot in Europe, less so in America, but that might be a thing that's going to be taking on much stronger. It's taking on becoming a bigger current to
Mhm.
follow. This thing of people now questioning their desires for material things. Times are getting harder. The middle class has disappeared in many of these,
Yeah.
you know, first world economies. So I think that's a cultural thing that is crossing borders. But yeah, and we can't get away with the fact that in some countries, like let's say in India, you'll desire a super beautiful sari, which is not something that the Western woman's going to desire. I mean, so we're always going to have some differences in
Yeah.
terms of that, you know.
Definitely. I mean, there are, for sure things which are very rooted into, local cultures, and that would always be different, I feel. So, yeah, um, let's go on to the next question. Um,
Mhm.
in a world of collapsing categories, hospitality meets fashion, beauty meets wellness, do you think the future of desire lies in cross-pollination rather than product mastery? I mean, you've just la in the last question we discussed about, moving in between the cultures. So this time you just tell me about what is happening, when we cross-pollinate within the segments within luxury.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned never losing sight of the roots is absolutely important. You know, I think this cross-pollination is super dangerous. I mean, I can see why the brands are overextending themselves into doing cafes and little chocolates and whatever to offer a full universe to their followers and also to gain more social media visibility.
Yeah, Dior
And
just launched their spa
yeah, and
in the
everything,
US.
everything, you know, and just to generate more growth to satisfy their shareholders.
Mhm.
But then it gets to the point where it becomes harder to see the difference between, let's say, a Louis Vuitton, a Nike, or an Apple store.
Mhm.
And I think it's like any good fruit tree, they need to be pruned regularly and never lose sight of their roots. You know, Hermes is in all these categories too, but they are always remind us that they're leather craftsmen. And they focus on the leather craftsmanship, even though they're selling furniture and lipstick and everything else. They focus on that. Gucci lost that. It became a lifestyle brand that no one even realizes that they used to be a very close competitor to Hermes, who
Mhm.
in nobody today would even think of comparing, do I buy a Birkin bag or do I buy a Gucci bag? Not in a million years. The
Yeah.
brand has collapsed into a ready-to-wear brand because they just chase the money and they put the brand everywhere. So it loses its meaning. So people are starting to question what product mastery does it have, and I think that that's the danger is that when people are questioning the legitimacy of these houses, are they true luxury houses or not? So I think it's very dangerous to cross-pollinate without keeping the eye and reminding us of your roots and enhancing those roots. We'll see now Hermes is moving into haute couture. But you'll see they'll never put the focus in a big way on the designer as others do. They'll be talking about the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And I think they'll always keep their focus on the craftsmanship. That's the language of that brand. And
Yeah.
that's the only way they'll be able to protect themselves, actually. So it's a
And it
tricky
makes
thing.
more sense because they've always talked about, heritage and legacy. And, the designers can come and go, but, or the creative directors can come and go, but the brand is going to stay. So, like you rightly said, that, they are going to talk about craftsmanship, which is actually the core or the spine of the brand, in case of Hermes.
But you know, it's not always a given. Hermes did do haute couture in the past, and then they finally failed. They shut it down,
Mhm.
maybe because it wasn't glamorous enough, it wasn't exciting enough. And you can be sure they're not going to be sending girls down the runway wearing mattresses on their heads like you're seeing, everyone else doing. So they're taking the chance again,
Yeah,
because people, again, it's about that desire. It's not rational. Is it a beautiful dress? Do I want to wear it? Look at some of the Schiaparelli things are absolutely amazing.
yeah,
Um, it's going to be tricky for them not to talk about make gurufy their fashion designer, and I'll be interested to see how they manage that. But what's for certain is they'll never let us forget where they're coming from, and that's just the saddles for a horse are the key, even though they're selling more Birkins,
yeah,
and that's how they keep control of that brand. So it's fine. The problem is going into cafes and chocolates and everything. Um, People start to complain about your restaurant and they're complaining about your brand. And that's happened to Ralph Lauren. Then they say, oh, the restaurant service is really bad. The people were rude. And that starts to affect the entire brand.
yeah,
Uh, or Giorgio Armani, people stop buying the suits in Dubai because all the staff at the Armani hotel are wearing Armani suits. So they say, well, I don't want to wear that. I'm not going to wear a staff uniform. You know, it can really backfire, and one has to be really careful in terms of extending those brands, stretching them out, how you do it, and it needs great management and really brand control. You can't just stick your name on everything and go for it.
yeah. I mean, that kind of also relates to, creating that feeling of scarcity, I feel. Because if you are, like you said, what happened to Gucci? I mean, they went into everything. They were chasing the numbers at that point instead
Yeah,
of, being an Hermes, which doesn't chase numbers at all. People chase Hermes, for their products, for Birkins or for Kelly bags.
yeah,
So, I mean, that is the kind of positioning or differentiation that Hermes has created uh, amongst all luxury brands. So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, having contributed to brands with a conscience, do you believe ethical luxury can be as desirable as aspirational excess once was?
I hope so. You know, I love what Capra, um, who wrote a luxury strategy, academic I respect so much and have known for many years. Um, in his luxury strategy book, he writes, if it's not ethical, it cannot be luxury. And I love that saying, and I push it into all my students and to all my clients. If it's not ethical, it's not luxury. But ethics are kind of a rational argument and a kind of a comfort zone. Desire is irrational. You know, I want it because I want it. It comes before ethics. And ethics can kill desire instantly as well because uh, if there's a lack of ethics,
Yeah.
then like desire is linked to love and respect. You can love someone, but when you lose respect for them, the love flies out the window. And it's so I think it's absolutely important that everybody, that all luxury has to be ethical. That's all we can say about that. It's not, you don't buy it because of its ethics, but you may not buy it because of its lack of ethics.
Yeah, because I
Um,
mean, especially in these days, because you see news almost, every month that there are data leaks happening, or, there are, luxury products being manufactured in sweatshops. I mean, this is entirely unacceptable because, like you said, desire comes from love and respect. I mean, I really liked how you put it. And when I think of such data breaches happening, it is not a data breach. It is a breach of trust that
yeah,
happens between the brand and its clients. So
absolutely. You feel lied to. And you
exactly.
and in any relationship, you lie once, they'll never trust you again.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is the problem is that for those brands, because yeah, they were lying. People believe they were made in France or they believe they were made in Italy, but they are made in Italy, but by a Chinese sweatshop in Italy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Or,
mean, that was
or
a
something like
massive outbreak that happened on the internet at that time.
Yeah.
So,
So
I mean, do
every,
you think DPPs, like the digital product passports, are going to help, you know,
yeah,
bring in
absolutely.
that kind of
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah,
transparency?
absolutely. I think for everything, it's the traceability and
Yeah,
blockchaining
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
absolutely fundamental today to have that.
Mm,
Uh, that's causing quite a problem, let's say, in the jewelry market, because for the young, the new brands, it's okay. You can have that, but a lot of them are sitting on stones that they don't know where they came from, or the stones came from unethical places 30
mm,
years ago, 40 years ago, and they're still sitting in the stock. So they can't turn around and guarantee that every stone that they have is ethical.
yeah,
Especially in that industry, there's a lot of murky stuff that goes on in the mining industry. Uh, but it's the same thing with even the resell market, the pre-loved market. How
yeah,
much of that is stolen goods? It's estimated like 30% is stolen goods. So the blockchaining is going to clean that up because you won't be able to resell the stolen goods.
yeah.
And I think it's absolutely fantastic that we're now having this kind of traceability. But then again, some of it's quite tricky because, again, in the jewelry market, you don't want everyone to know where your craftsmen are because for security reasons too, you don't want them to be robbed. The
Yeah.
last thing you want is for people to know where that studio is with all those precious stones. They're hidden away in Paris. I know some, but they're absolutely very well hidden for security reasons. So you don't want to be revealing.
Mm,
And you don't want your competitors going to and poaching those craftspeople either. So there's I think it's a matter of being as open as possible and as secretive as necessary, as I put in that interview at, for the World Luxury, um, you know,
yeah. So, I have another interesting topic in mind that is currently happening. I mean, if AI and data are beginning to predict consumer desires, does this make desire too engineered, or does it allow brands to go even deeper into personalization? Especially, I was really shocked when I saw that, ChatGPT is going to have a shop now, kind of a thing available, and they could, the brands could list them up and themselves up, and ChatGPT is going to display whatever is best according to that. So, and people are, I mean, crazily using ChatGPT these days. So I'm really intrigued with this question actually.
it's a very, very good question. And I think at the end of the day, if it feels engineered, it
Mm-hmm.
can be annoying and even feel intrusive and can be
Yeah.
really upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and you always feel it feels so soulless. And then, when the brand keeps chasing you for something because you bought one thing from them once and now they're saying, oh, now you need this. You can see it's just an algorithm that is just there to bother you. Um, it's very different if the brand ambassador, let's say, finds out that I love contemporary art and then surprises me by sending me an invitation to a forthcoming art event that they're going to be doing or something. And I think AI needs to operate on that level. Try to not trying to sell me stuff all the time, but kind of just gently like build a friendship that you know what I like and you're feeding me things that I will appreciate receiving that knowledge. Like I appreciate reading everything you write because
Mm-hmm.
it interests me. You're
Yeah.
not trying to sell me something. It's just, oh wow, that's very insightful. I really enjoy it. So I think it's good. And now you're not an algorithm, but if you were, I would be appreciating it just as much
Mm.
uh, because I really like how you write and what you're looking at and the subjects that you're doing. So that would work for me, but it doesn't. It's too soulless and brainless. The way it works is absolutely too focused on getting commercial results, and therefore it
Yeah.
becomes annoying and intrusive. And so I think AI needs to operate on that other level. It has to go into personalization in a non-intrusive way, as you would with building a good relationships with a new friend or something. And you're trying to keep the flames of desire alive. You're trying to look forward to seeing that friend a second time. That's can AI get there? I think that's a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it can never replace the kind of human connect thought that is there, or the way that brands have established that kind of connection over the years with the clients. I think to build that kind of desire through AI and different tools available out there is going to be difficult, especially in this industry, which is highly driven by emotion and desire. So you cannot
Yeah.
just, push someone to desire something just because you are, giving them hundreds of notifications or, reminders to buy this or that. So I truly agree with what you've said. I think we've had a very interesting conversation today, ranging from what desire means, the five ways in which you can define desire that you just mentioned, talking about various examples from, King Louis to discovering different examples from Chanel and Dior with their iconic products. So I think it's been a very fruitful conversation. But before wrapping up the podcast for today, I think I really want to ask you this one last question. If you have to define desire in one word, what would be that one word for you to define desire?
Maybe appreciation.
Okay, interesting. I mean,
Maybe.
yeah, would you want to elaborate on that now?
Well, I think you cannot desire something you don't appreciate.
Hmm.
So, if I look at a beautiful piece of art, I mean, you might say, "What's that?"
Yeah,
It's really it has no value if you're not appreciating it.
yeah,
If I gave you a Picasso drawing on a napkin, you might, instead of paying you, you might chuck it in the bin because
yeah.
you don't appreciate it. The cleaning lady, she'll be upset. Rather give me my $20 or something.
Mm.
You want to be, but if you say, "Oh my God, this is a Picasso,"
Yeah.
it's a different story. So I really think the magic word is that.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, I think again, culture does really play a huge role. The French, I'd say, like rule in the sense that they know how to add culture. It's very important that people want to share in the same appreciation of that culture. And
Mhm.
that's where it's much harder for French to do that in India because you're packed with culture and traditions that go back thousands and thousands of years. We're just babies in the field. Let's
Yeah.
not forget, like, luxury began in India. You had a monopoly of diamonds for 2,000 years. We had to build ships to come and buy it from you. You didn't do Amazon direct deliveries. We had to come to you, build our own ships to get to you
Yeah.
guys to do our shopping, and I think it's so different. And culture is seductive.
Yeah.
So I think seduction helps to enhance the design. That's also why French brands focus on exhibiting in museums and things like that, which it enhances and helps people to appreciate because, oh, that brand, Cartier, is in a museum. Our local brand in Rajasthan or in Jaipur, is it would never make it because they're doing copycats all the time and they're just doing the thing, whatever is needed for the bridal market. It's how to make people appreciate, and it comes with the culture and it comes with those additional subtle things like we've been in a museum, you're buying a museum piece. Because otherwise, you're going to turn around and say, well, what's its weight in gold?
Mhm.
I'm not paying more for the brand name. Why should I? So I say,
Yeah.
well, actually, you know what? That piece that you just bought in Jaipur will always be only worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Whereas this piece that you bought from, Van Cleef or whatever the brand is, in 100 years' time is going to be worth 10 times more.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts to kick in. And one has to even appreciate what the brand brings to the world, that it sets a precedent. It's a worldwide benchmark.
Hmm.
It's not just its piece and the weight in gold.
Yeah.
So it's those little things which I think uh, make the add the difference. We cannot not talk about culture. Luxury is linked absolutely to culture.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, appreciation is an interesting way to put it. And so, I mean, I really loved our conversation today. So, I mean, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here with me. And it's it's interesting to know various aspects that we've explored today. Everyone stay
Well,
tuned to the next episode of The
well,
Future
you
of
can you
Desire.
can let everyone in here know that I'm going to start doing brand strategy sprint workshops. So if they need help on their brands, they must get in touch.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, thank you so much, Philip.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Richa. Appreciate it. It was fun.
thank you.